Welcome to Kingston, dear Mark. How was your drive?
It was awesome.
Cool.
I've seen that sign says Woodstock, you know, when it says Woodstock.
Exit 19.
And then Kingston. So
welcome to Kingston.
Thanks for inviting me to...
What do you have here?
Well, we got a light load today.
That's good.
This is going to be the chapter openers. It's going to be on the one wall.
Nice.
I'll show you. And then this, I'm not sure what we're going to do with these yet, but...
We'll figure out some way. Is that Debbie?
That's Debbie, yeah.
Oh, it was her birthday the other day.
Silk screen.
Wow.
Silk screen. So
beautiful.
We got a big motley crew.
How many of these did you do?
Well, I have like 7 of these. I'm not sure if we're gonna have space, but that's why, you know. We start with a big one.
That's a nice one, man.
Motley Crew action.
That's a nice one. Look, you're in the Village Voice. Rolling and action.
Okay, we got a little Slippery When Wet, 1986. This was the original cover of Slippery When Wet until we had John just write Slippery When Wet on the garbage bag cover. So this is...
And here comes Ozzy.
Ozzy in the pink tutu. This was my first photo shoot with Ozzy, 1981, for the cover of Circus Magazine.
Wow, he looks so young there. We were all young then, I guess. What you got there? Oh,
yeah, so who would think that I introduced Zakk Wylde to Ozzy in 1988?
Hard to believe.
30 years later, I get introduced to another Zakk Wylde, but he ended up being my intern. His middle name was Wylde. His dad named him after Zakk Wylde, and he is my admin on my TikTok. He's got 750,000 subscribers, and he wanted to learn how to be a rock and roll photographer, and next thing you know it, he's, you know, interning for me, and he's kicking ass. He was on the Travel Channel.
I saw that on YouTube. I was amazed by it. It was
amazing.
beautiful.
He just got this great job. He's like...
More amazing photos.
Bret Michaels of Poison, 1986.
Bret, what a trip.
Dee Snider, 1984.
Wow, classic.
I did the Stay Hungry album covers.
Classic. Oh, I love that one.
This is the
where'd you shoot that?
This is in Rumson, New Jersey, right by the post office, and this was supposed to be the back cover.
It ended up being the front cover.
No, this ended up being the back cover for that one that it got.
Oh, for that one.
And then they ended up using a live photo I shot of the band for the back cover.
Yeah, that's a nice. Yeah, that's the most.
CBGBs with mixed media with my girlfriend Mikkel.
Everyone loves that.
And it's a big seller for sure.
Good old CBGB, man.
1987, they did an autograph signing and acoustic set, which is on YouTube. You can check it out. And we just hung out, literally. Slash was hanging out.
Yep. And, we all hung out then.
So tell me about where we're going right now.
Right now we're heading towards Woodstock, but before we reach Woodstock, the church that used to be an old architect's building, we're gonna go to Radio Woodstock, which was a church.
Who's at Radio Woodstock? I mean, I'm trying to figure out everything that we're doing, promoting.
Okay, Radio Woodstock happens to be probably the #1 independent radio station.
I heard of it, yeah, for sure.
They're part of the what you call iHeart company.
Yes,
and
yes, that's where I heard it, yeah.
Yeah, they've been around 50 years, so it's like one of the oldest rock and roll stations in America.
Yeah.
And the person that's going to do the interview with you, his name is Greg Gatine. Greg is probably one of the best DJs, and he has the slot from 5 a.m.
Here we are, Radio Woodstock, 101.1. Radio Woodstock, here I come. I'm going to see you on the air. is like we're gonna have. This is like church. This is religion. Radio Woodstock is religion.
Exactly.
Wow, this is beautiful. Wow, look at that Volkswagen. Check out that Volkswagen. Holy.
Yep.
Oh yeah, the bug, yeah. I'm like Bug.
Mark Weiss.
Howdy, Richard.
How you doing, Richard?
Welcome to the church.
Oh my goodness, this is great. I think I'm gonna get back into religion.
We got a different kind of religion.
Yeah, exactly.
Hold on.
Beautiful.
So, I mean, as a kid, I loved all the goofy greats, you know, the Hollywood, the alley-oop and the shit like that. So
Yeah.
I started playing oldies. For
Right.
like 3 years I did oldies, you know, 45s and
Yeah.
carts and jingles. And that's when you were really a disc jockey, because you had rotary pots and this and that, and you really had to work.
I got exposed to the 50s in American Graffiti. That's where
Yeah.
that's where I kind of discovered it, because I was like 12 years old or something when
Right,
it came
right.
out, and it was on the movies, and I just loved that movie,
Yeah.
you know. And then I started, you know, exploring. You know, one thing turns you on,
Yeah.
you want to go back and keep going with it.
Yeah, I was big into Elvis and Buddy Holly and
Yeah.
all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
In
yeah.
the
I had
80s.
tickets for Elvis at the Nassau Coliseum. It was that summer that he died.
The show that he didn't
Yeah.
come to.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
This morning, Mark.
No, I didn't.
And it's July 21, so that's Friday, the 21st, you'll be at Kingston Pop Museum.
Yeah.
Opening night.
And how long is Mark's exhibit up for?
2 weeks. Finishes, I think, August.
Okay. Sorry, here, pass the hat.
All right, you got it.
Welcome to Woodstock, man. You
Yeah,
should come up
thanks.
more often.
You know, I'm from the Jersey Shore, and it only took me 2 hours and change to get here. When I was a kid, I just had this, like, I just thought Woodstock was like 5 hours away. I don't know, just something that I just thought. I thought it was like this unreachable place just because of the legacy that the concert had.
So you're going to be at the Kingston Pop Museum, opening night Friday, July 21st. The Decade That Rocked is the book. You're a photographer who's taken some of the all-time great rock and roll shots, a lot of album covers. Twisted Sister, you did Stay Hungry, some Bon Jovi, a couple Bon Jovis.
Yeah, Slippery When Wet, and yeah.
That's a good one.
That was a big one. I
Yeah.
sold a few records in there.
Anthrax, Dokken, Christina Aguilera, Gwen Stefani. So
Yeah.
you've covered a lot of different...
I did. I was the guy in the '80s, but when the '80s kind of like fizzled out, I tried the '90s, and I shot Soundgarden and all those, Pearl Jam, all those bands, but I just didn't click with them. Because I was the '80s guy, and even though I did all these album covers and was all over the place, they didn't want to be photographed. They just wanted to. So I had assignments to shoot them one time, but usually when I get an assignment, I try to nurture that into being their photographer. And I tried, I love the music, and it just didn't work. But then when the '90s, when Christina Aguilera came out at the end of the '90s, and all these bands in sync, and I started working for this German magazine called Bravo, and then they started hiring me, and I started getting to know all these people. So I have a whole another genre of music that I'm gonna start showcasing my hip hop stuff through a Morrison Hotel Gallery, actually. Which
Okay.
I just signed to.
Good, good. Congrats.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, as you point out, in the 80s, everybody was like, take my picture, just did my hair. Take my
Exactly.
picture.
Yeah, I couldn't have enough hairspray.
and then grunge came, and it was like, don't take my picture.
Yeah. And honestly, like, I was at the Cherry Pie video shoot for Warrant, and they always say, like, that was the nail that sealed the coffin. It was a big hit. It was a great video, but for some reason, the turns changed when, you know, I hate to sound cliche, but Teen Spirit came out.
Yeah.
And it's true. It's like the record companies just said that we had enough. I honestly thought that this decade would not go away. I mean, maybe every genre thinks that. You know what I mean? They usually come in 10-year cycles.
Yeah.
But who would ever think that they would be so shunned? You know. And until really, they started rebuilding and rebranding when Kiss did their reunion with their makeup in '96, so not long after. So that was the beginning of building up that genre again. I mean, it took another 10 years, 15 years to really come in full swing, and now it's like insane. I mean, all these 80s bands that I did their album covers for and did their publicity photos, toured with my buddies. They're all, you know, teaming together and doing the festivals, and they're playing their own shows, and they're making some money, and they're having fun. And the fans are just like, something about the 80s and that genre, because of the music videos, I call it, and all the radio that was helping them. When they went to a town, they went to the radio station, they did the album cover signing. It was like
at the record store.
You got to meet your star. It doesn't happen anymore, you know. So
why not? Why don't these artists do that anymore?
Well, there's so many bands now, and it's not all connected anymore. Just like radio is really not as connected as it used to be, because it's, you know, used to play a few songs and everyone in the whole country knew that song, so you can build a tour around it. And the bands, that's how they made the career. So the 80s was really, and MTV, that was it, the visual. So for me as a photographer, a rock photographer, like loving the music, because I came up loving, you know, Frampton, Zeppelin, Kiss, Aerosmith, Jethro Tull, all those 70s bands. The 80s came around and it just kind of fine-tuned all those bands, and they just added some glitz to it, you know, and it turned out to be, you know, to the way I look at it, it's almost like glam rock. If you look at it, when I was in the thick of it, I didn't think of it like that. I just thought it was like these cool guys dressing up cool, like, you know, it's like the circus.
Yeah, you know? Bowie, T-Rex, Roxy Music.
Sweet,
I don't think we called it glam rock back then.
Yeah.
Mott the Hoople, stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, so yeah, Mott the Hoople, T-Rex, and Bowie, they never really got shunned for dressing like that, but for some reason, I guess the 80s took it a little too far, a little too tapered, you know. I have an album cover, Dockin' Under Lock and Key, which sold millions of records and put the band on the map. And they dressed, they had this clothing designer make these outfits, and they literally looked like circus outfits. And the band first saw it at my photo shoot, had all this money invested, and they didn't even want to put them on, and they put it on. Like, one guy had, you know, Mick Brown, the drummer, had a yellow suit on, the other guy, Jeff Pilson, had a purple, the singer Don Dokken had a blue, and George Lynch had a red, and they all, like, they put them on, and we still talk and we still kid about it, but it's remembered. And that's what's important. And when I talk to fans in the 80s that are now in their 50s, we talk about those things. And that album cover to them was like beautiful to them. Like, it was like they were the superheroes. So you gotta, you know. So I think a lot of the bands from that I grew up with, you know, with their success, are embracing it. And why not? You know, they're still working.
The book is The Decade That Rocked, and the website is The Decade That Rocked. So we're going to see you and this book and some of your photos at the Kingston Pop Museum Friday, July 21st. Your stuff will be up for 2 weeks, but you'll be there on Friday night for the opening night.
Absolutely, yeah, it's going to be fun.
And this is a heavy, heavy book.
6 pounds, 1 ounce. Yeah, it's like a baby.
It is.
It actually took me 5 years to put together. Like just to come up with the concept and how I kind of, every chapter was a different year. I had to do it that way.
Yeah.
And then after each year was a book on its own. And I had to narrow it down and narrow it down. It was only supposed to be 300 pages. It ended up being close to 500. There's 3 gatefolds in it. I mean, the publisher went all out on it. And to me, it was like my first portfolio, because back in the 80s I was so busy. I was jumping on from Ozzy to Guns N' Roses to Aerosmith, to all these bands, and I didn't have time to put together a portfolio. You know, I always wanted to put together a portfolio and have a collection of my work, and I didn't quite get when the internet came out. I got busy with other things, and I wasn't into it. So it's not. I don't really have a website that depicts it. But this book, The Decade That Rocked, really is my story, and this book in particular is it's narrative, and it's my story from when I first got my first camera mowing lawns. I was 12, and I knocked on some guy's door, and he said, you know, I said, you know, do you need your lawn mowed? And he's like, no, I do it myself. And I said, no, it doesn't look that way. It's your lawn. He snickered at me, and he came back with this Bell & Howell Canon camera, and he traded it for a season. I thought I was going to take the camera and hawk it for $100 at the pawn shop down the street. But then I took it, and it resonated. I put it on my, you know, it just kind of stared at me for like the whole summer. I'm like, let me ask my teacher, and there's a photography class, maybe he'll teach me how to develop film. And that's how it started.
And what was the first rock show that you shot?
The first rock show that I snuck into was Elton John, where John Lennon actually showed up at the end. And
Thanksgiving at the Garden.
Yeah, yeah. I snuck away with my friend Frank from Thanksgiving dinner. We both kind of planned it. We got on the train, and we met on the train, and then we got tickets. I snuck the camera in, and I brought one roll of film, and I didn't catch the John Lennon because
you used all the shots before John Lennon came out.
And it's not a great photo. It's in the book. It just depicts like my beginning, and then full circle at the end of the book, 1990. You know, and actually 1980. I shot John Bon Jovi for the first time in a band called The Rest. He was opening for Southside Johnny. I didn't even know I had the pictures of him, but
because nobody knew John Bon Jovi.
No one knew who he was, but I just happened to take pictures of it, and then later on, when I was doing the book, I saw The Rest, and I looked at the pictures, and I was like, you know, he kind of looked like Justin Bieber, you know.
This is a chubby little cute kid from New Jersey. Yeah.
And then 3 years later, they're opening up for ZZ Top after they won the award from one of the radio stations in Long Island for Runaway. So they got the opening slot on ZZ Top. I was hired at that point. I was working, and ZZ Top hired me to shoot them, and I was just shooting this opening band. So I figured I'd shoot a roll. And then 2 years later, I was working for McGee Entertainment, and he had Motley Crue.
Doc McGee?
Yeah, Doc. Yeah. I've known him since the late 70s when he did Pat Travers. And he's like, hey, Mark, and I've been working with him with Motley since the beginning. And he's like, I got this band from Jersey. I think you'll hit it off with them. They're from your 2 towns away from you, and they're Jersey boys. And when you get back to Jersey, let's set up a photo shoot. And that was my first official shoot, which was for 7,800 degrees Fahrenheit on my studio in Empire State Building, right across from the Empire State Building.
Oh, great.
And so that's how. And then full circle, where I started this little story was when he did his solo album, Blaze of Glory, and John wanted me to document everything. I documented on video, photos with Little Richard, Jeff Beck, Elton John, and I got post shots and everything. So I started out the book with Elton at the Garden, and I ended it with Elton, with John hanging out at the studio recording Blaze of Glory.
Awesome. The Decade That Rocked, Mark Weiss, and you got some of the big, I mean, you got Led Zeppelin, you got the Rolling Stones, you got Aerosmith, and a lot of these bands at their peak too.
Yeah, well, I got them at their peak, and I got them at their low points. Like with Aerosmith, my first picture.
Well, they had a lot of low points.
They had a lot of low points, but their high point, well, literally, was at Giant Stadium in 1978 when I snuck my camera in, and Circus Magazine, you know, after I got arrested for selling my pictures at a Kiss concert. Did I talk about that already?
No, you didn't.
Oh, sorry. All right. I'm just jumping all. What's in this coffee? Holy cow.
Well, before Aerosmith, let's go back to Kiss in Madison Square Garden, and you selling pictures, getting arrested outside the Garden, right?
Yeah, so I was hustling my pictures from Elton John. I was like, oh, well, that was fun. And then Clapton was my next one in '75 at the Nassau Coliseum, and I had this, you know, my brother bought seats, so we were really close. And because the Elton was far away and it didn't look great, but I knew I had to be close, so we got seats. I got this amazing shot of Eric, which, side note, recently is in a museum next to the Brownie Fender guitar in this museum, big mural that I just sold to this museum over in the Musical Museum. It's a big place. Anyway.
In the States or in Europe?
In the States. It just, like 4 months ago, we just released it. They found this photo, because on everyone's birthday on my social media, I post one of my favorite shots. So that one was all over the internet. He's wearing the SO suit. He's looking cool. He's playing the guitar that they had featured in the museum. And, you know, so I sold him the shot, you know. And
so you're out on the streets of New York City hawking photographs of yours for $1 a piece?
Yeah. So I would stay up all, like when Zeppelin played in '77, I'd go the first night, I graduated high school the next night, went back the third night and sold them for $1 a piece. And that's how I kind of got my feet wet. And then at a Kiss concert, I shot them, I believe it was the first time Kiss played Madison Square Garden, 1977 February. And I took some pictures, killer shots. I used to sneak my camera in, you know, put the cameras, you know, in my, down my fry boots and in my hoodie, you know, I would like, you know, just hide it so when they pat you down, the camera's in the back of you. Then I go in there, lights go down after the opening band, you jump over the plastic barricade and you just kind of fend for yourself.
Which you used to do at the Garden all the time. It's easy to do.
And my trick was go 10 rows back and uncouple the seats and push it forward to close off the aisle so the security guards don't come down, and then I have my own spot for the night. So that was my little go-to thing. Take pictures, stay up all night, go to high school the next day, sell them at my high school locker. I had a sign on, the teachers didn't care, and then I'd hop on the train for the next night. And then with Kiss, they were tracking down all the shirt sellers, bootleggers, and I guess that's what I was called.
Right,
me and my buddy, you know, Glenn Bax, actually he's still my buddy, you know, 50 years later, they caught me selling the pictures. So I ended up in the paddy wagon, and the next day they said, if you want your pictures back, you got to come back before the judge. And I said, just don't tell my parents.
So what was the charge?
It just, you know, soliciting pictures, you know, just like the shirt sellers. So then I said, I still did it for a while. I just had to run faster. And then...
Or get a lookout or something.
Well, I had a lookout. It didn't work this time. But then the next day, I said, I saw the Circus magazine there. My brother had a subscription, and I said, I looked at it, and I looked at the masthead and see where it was. It was New York City, you know. So I went on a train, brought my photos, and I told them. You know, I said, I just knocked on the door, kind of told the secretary what happened, and she kind of took a liking to me, and she's like, all right, just stay here, kid. You know, let me talk to the art director, and you know, see if he'll see you. You know, give me a pep talk or whatever. And I waited like 3-4 hours, and at the end of the day, he came in and I showed him my material. He said, I like what you got, but you have to shoot with a flash, shoot Kodachrome, and come back when you think you got something. I like what you're doing, but you got to shoot on different film. I was shooting Ektachrome available light. They wanted this bright, crisp, you know, Kodachrome, give me the, you know. So I came back. I didn't really like shooting with flash because it kind of takes away the coolness of the concert. So I was at the Aerosmith show with Ted Nugent and Mahogany Rush at Giant Stadium, 1978. And I stuck my camera in, and it was daylight. I didn't need a flash, and so I took some photos and I dropped them off, and 2 months later, Beatles were on the cover of the October issue of Circus, and the centerfold was that picture of Steven Tyler.
Nice.
And then the ball started rolling, and within a year, like then Van Halen came out, they hired, and then I started going on assignments, so I had photo passes, and then I was just like, any door that was halfway open, I would just break it down and just like say, I'm here, you know.
Because you finally had the pass now.
I had the pass, I had a little power now, you know. So
yeah.
Now you know, and they wanted to be in circus, which, you know, I'm still a teenager, you know, but, and then Peter Frampton, Rogers and Cowan hired me. I had a friend that worked at Rogers and Cowan who was Peter Frampton's publicist, and this is after his big motorcycle accident in '78, I believe. And they didn't want a big glitzy photographer, so Peter requested have someone just low-key, you know, not in the way, you know. And so my friend George Dassinger, who was the account executive at Rogers and Cowan, said, you know, Mark would be perfect. So he brought me up. And I spent the day with Peter in Westchester in his house, and the dog, the photo that they used for the publicity was him hanging out with his dog in shorts, Rocky, and I'm going to see him Sunday.
Peter?
In Atlantic City. And,
okay.
And he did, it's featured in the book, that shoot, and he's on the trampoline jumping around too. It's like 4 pages. We interviewed him for the book, and then 6 years ago when he was on tour, I asked the manager.
It's the decade that rocked. You did a lot of stuff with Ozzy.
Yeah. 81.
And you introduced Zach?
Yeah. I was with Sharon and Ozzy at my studio doing a photo shoot, and they invited me to go to check out a couple guitar players in Long Island. There was one, so I got in the car with them and my friend Dave. And Ozzy was like, "Yeah, that's him." And me and Sharon are like, "No, it's not," you know. And so the last words was, "I'll keep my eyes open." So the next day, I just, you know, told my friend Dave, the same guy we went and hung out with, and I said, "I'll meet you at this club in Jersey." And he's like, "I'm not going out, I'm tired." I said, "Well, I'm going there, so, you know, I'm just gonna go. I don't know who's playing, let's just go and hang." I ended up falling asleep in front of Johnny Carson. He ended up going. This band called Cyrus was playing, Zach was playing guitar. My friend Dave called me up, he says, "I found Ozzy's new guitar player." I'm like, well, "Yeah, right, yeah." At the club that he wasn't supposed to go to. And so he was very convincing. He said, "No, Mark, he looks good. He's got it. I heard him. I seen it. You know." I said, "All right, well, Ozzy's coming to my studio tomorrow in New York. Bring him. You know, tell him to bring his practice amp and just bring him." I said, and I told Sharon about it. He goes, "Oh yeah, we'll you know, we're gonna be there looking at photos, so we'll say hi and if Mark, if you think he's good." And meanwhile, I haven't even heard him. I just, you know, I'm believing my best friend, you know. And so long story short, it's not a short story, but Ozzy and Sharon were supposed to come to the studio, but he ended up getting drunk with Andre the Giant, and they both kind of passed out.
Don't ever tour with bands?
Yeah,
as a photographer?
all the time.
Yeah?
I wouldn't go on full tours. I mean, you know, I would go for a week at a time, 2 weeks. I would jump from shooting Rat to Ozzy to Skid Row to Bon Jovi. Certain bands I would travel around the world with. You know, I shot Scorpions in Germany. Bon Jovi I went everywhere with. I mean, I went to the Moscow Peace Festival. You know, when they first did that, we went over ahead of time. I did a shoot with Rolling Stone that they wanted it documented, so I did that spread.
It was just the anniversary of Live Aid.
Yeah.
July 13th, you were there.
Yeah, Black Sabbath reunion, so obviously anything.
You were at the JFK show.
Yeah, anything Ozzy did, they wanted me there. I did family photos. I watched their kids when they would, you know, be out, you know. But yeah, that was an amazing show. Even take the pictures, you know. Just send that to the record company. That's it. Let the music speak for itself.
Okay.
That's it.
There's a lot of rock and roll history in this book, The Decade That Rocked. And Mark, I can't wait to hang out and hear more of these stories, because every picture tells a story, right?
Don't it?
And you got thousands and thousands of them. Friday night, July 21st, Kingston Pop Museum is the opening night, and your stuff will be up for a couple of weeks, so really looking forward to it. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too. We're looking forward to telling some stories, meeting some fans and some friends, and just having a party.
Taking some pictures.
In Woodstock, well, close to Woodstock.
Yeah. Great, man.
Whew.
99?
99.
Yeah. Well, 94.
Hey, how are you?
Sorry.